Chapter 5 delves into the consumer behavior and how advertisers use it to influence purchasing habits. It's important that we understand human communication and human behaviors in order to write and create advertising to influence consumers. So first we must understand human communication process. It begins with the source. It's the person who is speaking. The message gets encoded with symbols and words. It becomes a message. The message has to be broadcasted by media or medias. The message is then received and decoded by a listener. The receiver is you or I. And then there's a feedback loop. So the feedback loop is really important so that we know that the customer is understanding what our message is. And there's another chart that I don't have here that's in the book about how things have changed greatly because now everything's a big circle because there's so much feedback with consumers being able to speak to businesses through Facebook, Twitter, the internet. So the communication process and advertising. How does this communication system translate to advertising? So the source is the sponsor. The message is the advertisement. The channel is the medium, and the medium is TV, radio, internet, your cell phone. The receiver is the consumer. Now we spoke before about semiotics, and semiotics is the study of symbols and words to represent ideas, and we have a class that just focuses on this, semiotics for creators of popular culture. It's 543604, and it's an elective, and it can be counted as college-wide elective, and there's also an honors section of this. So semiotics is the study of humans' use of words, gestures, signs, symbols to convey feelings, thoughts, ideas, and ideologies. Here's an example. Evian is selling their water, and they're using these images to represent fresh, clean, young, healthy, water that a flower can grow in, natural, and it's unique, like a mermaid. So why is it important for an advertiser to understand the basic steps consumers go through to make a purchase decision? There are two answers to that question. Advertisers' primary mission is to reach prospective customers and influence their awareness, attitudes, and buying behavior. Awareness, attitudes, and buying behavior. To succeed, they need to understand what makes potential customers behave the way they do. This involves the study of consumer behavior, why people do what they do. So psychology plays a huge role, and through the years, advertising agencies and those who study advertising have come up with different systems to understand how this works. So they have this first thing called the consumer decision process. How do people go about making a decision? And I don't know if you've ever really thought about how you make your decisions, but this chart in your book sort of follows that along. So steps in the decision process on your right there is problem recognition. You have to know that there's an issue, that you have a problem, right? So I ran out of toothpaste. I need toothpaste. What do I do about that? Or is it a larger decision-making process? I need a new car. I'm going to need more information about that. I'm going to have to evaluate the selection. With toothpaste, I probably will just go back to the brand I am using unless I'm encouraged by advertising or by a sales promotion to do something different. And then we have to choose a store. So stores, advertise. Where am I going to go buy that toothpaste? Is it going to be Walgreens, CVS? How do I decide? And then I want to always feel good about my purchase. On the left side, you have influences. Who influences your decision? Family, society, culture. And then there's also time, place, and environment. So what's the time situation? Am I in a location? So location is a big thing now with geo-location services on your cell phone. That's why it's so important to know. Companies want to know where you are and when you are. You've heard of them sending coupons when you may be passed by their store. So we're going to use this with the idea of buying a couch. So how do you decide what couch you're going to buy and who influences that? So looking back at this chart, it's a pretty big purchase. A couch is not cheap. So you're going to look around. You're going to maybe go to a couple stores. You're going to try to find out what it's made of, what the fabric is, how long it might wear and tear. You also might speak to your friends and your family about couches they've purchased and what they think. Word of mouth will have a big take on that. And then you'll be influenced by ads. Because once you start looking for something, all of a sudden you see ads everywhere for that product. This is an interesting chart. Perception is the personalized way we sense, interpret, and comprehend stimuli. Perception challenge is the first and greatest hurdle advertisers face. A stimulus is something we can perceive through our senses. It gets our attention. Perceptual screens are the subconscious filters that shield us from unwanted messages before any data can be perceived. Stimuli must penetrate a set of perceptual screens. And so it's ways you block things out. You don't even know you're doing it. We do it all the time because there's so many messages being sent to us. And there's physiological screens. They compromise our senses. Our sense of smell, taste, hearing. They're all stimuli. And then there's cognition, which is a concept of comprehending the stimuli. Once we detect the stimulus and allow it through our senses, we can comprehend and accept it. Now perception has occurred and the stimulus reaches the consumer's reality zone. There's psychological screens to evaluate too. After that, we then have a mental file. We store it. We store the information. We rank it as important or not important, but it's kept in our subconscious memory. So to overcome screens, advertisers use many different techniques. Sex and provocative photos are one way to get a customer's attention. Another way, and it's different in different cultures, if you copy this link and watch it, it's about selling hair to Muslim women who cover their heads. So how do you sell shampoo if you can't show hair? Interesting. So there's other ways to fight screens that people use, that advertisers use, is dogs, puppies. You always see animals in commercials because people love puppies and cats, right? Or cute men. So where's the attraction? Maybe you're not interested in beer, but you're interested in those puppies. And guess what? It's Molson beer. And you'll remember those puppies and you'll remember that beer. This next video discusses getting over other screens by using scent. It's pretty interesting. I'm sure you've noticed it in stores you've entered.
Hello, I'm David Azer, and this is 3-Minute Ad Age, your daily video news show. Today we follow our noses to the Scent World Conference and Expo here in New York. It was the first international gathering specifically focused on the use of scent in marketing. It drew attendees from 20 countries, and it showcased an amazing array of technologies for dispensing, embedding, and transmitting smells in spaces as small as product packages and as large as sports stadiums. The keynote speaker was C. Russell Brumfield, who runs a scent marketing consultancy and is an author of the new book, Whiff.
The wonderful thing about scent is that it's tattooed in the brain. Scents are tattooed smells. They are dynamic. Once you smell during a heightened experience, an adrenaline type of rush experience, this is where we all have memories. We smell something from when we were 12 years old. That was an emotional experience. So it tattoos on the brain. We reintroduced that. So you can do this in modern day with a brand by actually taking an exciting experience like a Rolling Stones concert. IBM, say they're the sponsor, and introduce a scent during a heightened emotion. And the science shows us that we can reintroduce that and get a little bit of that the psychological and physiological trigger on the shelf, on the market shelf. That's the key to branding now. It's endorphin branding.
Mr. Brumfield and the Scent Marketing Institute that organized the conference now view fragrance delivery systems as a medium in its own right.
We call the scent delivery systems the fragrance media. And that is just another set of media. First of all, fragments is delivered in through environmental means, through inks and varnishes, touch release programs. Microencapsulation can be used in plastic and in rubber and in embedded in a lot of products. That's the new things that are happening, is embedded products. I.e. Kumho Tires out of Japan wanted to market towards ladies last year, so they rolled out 3 different lavender and different, like jasmine, 3 different scents in their tires here in the United States.
Among the largest buyers of scent technology are hotels and retail chains, according to Mr. Brumfield.
Vegas started implementing scent because of the 45 to 50% increase in slot machine usage about 10 years ago. Those wonderful research. So those hotels in Vegas and in New York and along the coast, that started it, and now it's a nationwide chain stores. You go across Abercrombie and Fitch, you can name a lot of these stores, the Gap. They're all either in the trials or they're already rolled out. And that's the people who have come to this conference are supplying those stores to the tune of several thousand new environments a month.
And that's it for this 3-minute ad age. Thanks for being with us.
Now there's 2 theories of learning. One is cognitive theory, which views learning as a mental process of memory, thinking, and rational application of knowledge to practical problems. A good description of how we learn from experience of others and how we evaluate complex purchase decisions. The other theory is conditioning theory. It treats learning as a trial and error process. The consumer responds to some stimulus. If the consumer's response reduces the drive, then satisfaction occurs, and the response is rewarded or reinforced. This process is applicable to simple, basic purchases consumers make every day. Both of these will be on your quiz. Of course, many people think the best way to understand the consumer is to get inside their head and see what they're thinking, because wouldn't that be the easiest? And in fact, that is what is happening. This next video will demonstrate that.
This brand scan study is the first attempt to look at different brands, different ways of perceiving brands, so that we can get a general idea of what brand actually means, rather than confusing that with what might be a specific response just to one product, like a particular car or a particular cigarette.
Well, we're very excited about the brand scan opportunity. For the first time, we can look into people's heads and figure out what they really think about TV shows. And not just in general terms, which is what you get from interviews, but in a lot of detail.
Because nobody is telling the truth. Smokers are always concealing something. It short circuits any potential deviation from the truth and brings us straight into what's really going on in somebody's mind.
And the brand scan technology does give you an insight into people's minds.
I guess many people would wonder what fMRI actually was, and broadly speaking, it's a way of using a brain scanner, a magnetic resonance scanner, which is in pretty much every major general hospital in the world these days, using that to look at the brain, but instead of taking a single picture of the brain, as you would do, for example, to see if somebody had got brain damage after a car crash or something like that, fMRI, and the F stands for functional, means that while the person's in the scanner, you take a movie of images of the brain every few seconds, while the people in the scanner, person in the scanner is doing some sort of experiment that you're interested, looking at some bit of brain function that you're interested in, and you would then examine that movie to try and work out which bits of the brain were changing as the experiment was changing. So it's really like making a movie of the brain while a person's doing an experiment and then examining that movie to look for interesting changes in various areas of the brain. And it's by analysing this kind of data that we can find out where in the brain things are happening, where the responses to looking at various brand images, various stimuli, where those things are being processed. One of the aims is to try to get at information like what does brand mean, so that we can perhaps look at the marketing industry and answer that type of question.
SST is a novel brain imaging technology that's developed from academic research in the cognitive neurosciences. NeuroInsight has adapted this methodology to gauge how the brain responds to what we call naturalistic stimuli. In other words, stimuli that people see, do and experience as part of their daily lives. And one of those is watching TV and also viewing advertising. The benefit of using the SST methodology is that we are measuring directly, in the case of emotion, we're directly measuring those emotional responses. So we're going straight to the source.
Where does your eye go? When you're looking at an ad online, where's a hot spot? It's another way that marketers learn to create advertising that will catch the eye, literally, of the viewer. There's also shopper marketing. This next video goes over how marketers influence purchase habits in stores.
Are bombarding consumers with sales and discounts, but are you actually getting more for your money, or are you being manipulated into thinking that you're getting a deal? Martin Lindstrom is the chairman of Biology Inc., a marketing and neuroscience company. He's also the author of Biology, Truth and Lies About Why We Buy. Martin, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We're seeing so many sales right now because of the economy and obviously retailers wanting consumers to buy, but they also have these tricks that you're going to explain to us that get you to buy without even realizing why you're doing it.
Absolutely. They are so desperate to recover revenue. They had a terrible holiday season. The January sale was terrible. So they're going to play a lot of tricks in your mind. And you think you can resist it? Guess what? You can't.
Let's start with the size of the basket. What does that have to do with how much you buy?
Well, this is a fascinating experiment. We actually had a big shopping trolley like this one. And we had another experiment where we increased the size to the double size. Right? Guess what? People are buying 30% more when the shopping trolley or the cart is double the size.
Why is that, though?
Well, it's a little bit like when you had the colas introduced in the 80s in those large bottles. What happened was, actually, the manufacturers thought that you would drink less. You actually drink more because you have it in front of you and you're just consuming. In this case, you have a lot of space. I had to buy more, right?
Because you feel self-conscious not filling the cart.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on from the carts to the experiment that you did with batteries.
Yeah, well, this is really interesting because we asked students to go out and buy some batteries. We gave them $10 and we made sure when they went into the shop that there would be no people around. Now, guess what? When there was no people in the store, they actually bought the cheapest one, the generic batteries. When there was people placed in the retail store, guess what? They bought the most expensive brand name batteries.
Now, why? Is that to look like that they can afford it, or?
Yeah, exactly. What's happening is that you think and I think that we are not affected by people around us, but we are. We actually want to portray an image to the surroundings around us.
So how does a store use that kind of information?
Well, they make sure that there is a lot of people in the retail store. They make sure they place the aisles in such a way that you can see each other and people actually can keep an eye on you, and that means I have enormous pressure on me to buy even more.
Okay. Now, this one surprised me because you have this container of strawberries and then two separate ones. 2 for the price of 1. I would always go for that. That's not the smart deal.
No, it's not, because what they're going to do is to play on words, and they're really good at it right now. So what they're saying is, instead of just offering 1 tray of strawberries, instead they want to offer you 2 trays of strawberries. Now, guess what? There's actually more strawberries in this one than in those 2 ones, but we're still seduced to it. I call it our biology, because in reality we are hardwired to buy more when we hear things like this.
Right. Or in this case with cosmetics, you just change the sign slightly and that makes all the difference.
Yeah, the difference is here you can buy the creams for $1.95. Here we've added a little line saying maximum 8
3 per customer.
Yeah. And what's happening here is that customers become greedy. They want to have as many creams as possible. So when we did this experiment, guess what? This sold
This
out.
next model
People
is
didn't trust this
also
one.
on the test.
That's fascinating.
The elaboration,
So just because they want to say that they're the ones who got the most.
Exactly.
Okay. Now this, what is this about?
Well, I want to test you for a moment.
All right.
What smell do you think this is?
Essential route to persuasion.
Grass? That's right, freshly cut
Yeah, that kind of grass. Exactly. I wouldn't know the other kind.
Now, this smell is actually today sprayed into a do-it-yourself store. And actually...
Into a what store?
A do-it-yourself store.
Oh, do-it-yourself store,
Yeah.
okay.
And what's actually happening is the customers feel that the service level has increased with 49%.
Why would the smell of grass make you feel that?
Because you feel it's hard-working people working in the store, they have contact with nature, they're really tough people. So that smell makes people feel they're close to nature. Basically, that's the trick. So that's the reason why retailers are now using smells in retail stores.
Okay, so the next time you smell, you might not even be aware that it's there, though. I was going to say, next time you smell something, know that there's a trick up there.
You may not be aware of it at all.
All right, and how about the last one here?
Well, this is a trick. Be honest now.
Okay.
When you go into a new stand and you buy a magazine, do you always, like me, take the second paper from the top?
I do. I never take the first one because I figure everybody's hands have been on the first one. Yeah.
Did you know 92% is always taking the second paper from the top? But here's the trick. Actually, 72% put it back second to the top. So we all end up with the same crappy, filthy magazine, right?
So we should definitely take from the top then.
You should, yes.
You know what? I've learned a lot. Spray this grass again. All right. Martin Lindstrom, thank you so much. And tomorrow we'll wrap up our series with an actual look inside the brain of a shopper.
In the quest for brand loyalty, advertisers have three aims related to habits: breaking habits, getting customers to unlearn, acquiring habits to help customers learn to purchase their brand, reinforcing habits to remind current customers of the value of their purchase and to encourage them to continue purchasing. Love Marks, which we discussed last week, is all about brand loyalty. Next, we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. To better understand what motivates people, Abraham Maslow developed the classic model called hierarchy of needs. Maslow's theory states that lower physiological and safety needs dominate human behavior and must be satisfied before the higher socially acquired needs or wants become meaningful. The highest need, self-actualization, is a culmination of fulfilling all the lower needs and reaching to discover the true self. Now, if we look at this chart, we can see physiological needs at the bottom, they're the base thing, and that associates with a product such as breakfast cereal. Safety needs, avoidance of situations that are unfamiliar or threatening or that might lead to injury. Tires, safety tires. Social needs, friendship, affection, a sense of belonging. So that's a pendant, something that makes you feel socially acceptable. Esteem needs, self-respect, recognition, status, success. Luxury cars fit into that category. Self-actualization. That would be something like golf lessons, or maybe it's a graduate degree. This chart on fundamental motives, Rossiter and Percy, is also on your quiz, and you should take a look at it in your book. It's a little bit more complex, and it's very clearly stated, so take a look at that. Next is consumer behavior influences. We discussed this earlier in this video. We talked about family influences, cultural influence, and society, social groups, how your friends influence you. At an early age, you're very influenced by brands your family purchases. So there's the purchase decision and post-purchase evaluation. This is very interesting, and also on your quiz, post-purchase evaluation. Not only do marketers, advertisers need to persuade you, influence you to purchase a product, but they also have to manage your post-purchase evaluation, that you like your product, why you bought your product, and to make you continue to feel good about your purchase habit. Another subject that's in your quiz are these grids that are created by different agencies that discuss consumer involvement in products. And they have from high to low involvement, how much thinking goes into the purchase, and they all have these systems of figuring out where a product might land, where it exists in these charts, and that helps them decide what kind of advertising and messaging they need to create to influence the consumer. So take a look at those. So this concludes this lecture, but I want to make sure that you take a look at the recommended reading and the additional videos I have on Moodle. They will help reinforce many of the concepts and ideas covered in this lecture in the chapter, and they may be more entertaining. So thanks again, and keep on going.